Netflix. Love them or hate them, they are the model for what modern television streaming services have become. Like, they ran the streaming game from one point, having everyone asking everyone if they had a spare Netflix password they share. They were dropping banger after banger, and having each drop be like Christmas Day for all those antisocial people who didn't want to go to the movies. I can still remember the pure happiness I saw online when they dropped the old Nickelodeon bangers, like iCarly and Victorious on there, but nowadays the market has only been even more saturated with a ton of new competition, like the Disney Pluses, the HBO Maxes, the Prime Videos, leaving my boy to start showing his first signs of actually slowing down, as they reported their first quarterly loss in subscribers in over a decade this year. Thor movies have been bad to good, then back to bad, since the last time this company was even at a loss, and they honestly can't really be mad, because with such a success that Project Netflix has been, and the wild upcharts they have had for their services over the years, you can't really be surprised when others try to replicate it. They have people canceling whole cable plans to go crazy on the releases for days at a time, because why would I wait a week to see if my favorite character survives the next episode, when I can just binge watch the next 3, 4, or 5. Now with all these companies trying to run up their own streaming services, they're getting all of their good content stripped away like they're T'Challa or something.
The strength of the Black Panther stripped away.
This means that the big flicks is starting to have to rely more and more on their own original content, and they are fumbling that bag heavily on that end too. And they are canceling releases like crazy, and it's almost like they specifically aim for the ones with an interesting story just to mess with viewers. Like, give it up, bro. Them Stranger Things kids is gonna be grown eventually. One thing I can't knock this company is that they have money, and they are not afraid to use it to get some eyes on their product. How else do you think they can get Captain America and Ken from Barbie to star in a movie together? And they are even flexing that same bag when it comes to their newest vampiric release of Day Shift, led by big names such as Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, Snoop Dogg, Meagan Good, who all put on a decent performance for a movie that is clearly trying to set itself up to be a franchise, or at least come up with a sequel. Yet plans may be slowed down a bit, considering that this isn't even a movie that was hated specifically by critics for being too simple. This was hated by the general audience too. The story follows the adventures of Bud Jablonski, a rogue vampire hunter that is struggling to come up with money as he has been kicked out of the Union, an international vampire hunting association that he was kicked out of for breaking too many codes. Now he is forced to play by the rules on his last go of things, as without the money he won't be able to keep up with his daughter's tuition, and she will be forced to move across the country with her mother and will be unprotected against these creatures of the night. He must deal with all of these issues, all while being hunted by a very dangerous pack of vampires after he kills the wrong person. It has an extremely surface level plot that really had me thinking, dang, 2022 has not been the year for vampire movies. Now, the last time I saw Jamie Foxx in any movie at all, it was his performance in Spider-Man No Way Home of Electro, and that performance was pretty much just having Jamie Foxx play Jamie Foxx with electric powers. So seeing him show more than like 3 emotions in this film made it seem like an Oscar-winning performance in comparison. The person who actually took the role of playing himself but just with special abilities in this film was Snoop Dogg, and can I be honest? I sort of admire this man's journey. He quite literally has reached the point in his career where he is out doing anything and everything and just enjoying life. So who wouldn't want to star in a movie where they are a cowboy from LA who is one of the best at hunting vampires? What's most funny about his performance is that like 99% of the movie he's just chilling, doing things you would typically expect from Snoop Dogg. That randomly will he just show a burst of emotion I haven't seen since you really quit playing Madden on stream that one time.
This came in this room and everything went bad. This man.
The main villain of this movie is Audrey San Fernando, played by Karla Souza, a realtor by day and vampiric crime boss by night, who is trying to spread her newest formula that allows for vampires to survive in the sun, even if it's temporarily. She also does that weird thing that a lot of shows use to actively point a finger to show that they hired someone Hispanic, and that they randomly insert Spanish words into their dialogue, something that was highlighted quite comically in The Boys with the character of Supersonic. It would quite literally be the most mundane sentence in the world, and they would just still find some way to tack on a word or two at the end there. As I mentioned earlier, this movie was 100% made with the intention of being the origin of a bigger story when it was created. Like, they really spent a lot of time world building and setting up future plot points. This could be seen in the frequent mention of a super old European vampire that is obviously supposed to be the final boss of the franchise, to the characters having such extreme personalities that it may take a couple of movies to really set themselves out straight, such as the character of Seth, played by Dave Franco, who was said to be such an extreme pushover of a character that while granted he does find some confidence at the end there, he will definitely need to take more time as a character to fully be fleshed out, if that makes any sense. As far as more world building, you have a high emphasis on labeling the subcategories of vampires and the differences between them without giving too much information. The general rules of the world, how people actively participate in that world, and how vampires work in that said world, considering the fact that vampires are continuously altered from one form of media to the next. You even have the fact that they introduce certain characters into the story and give us no clue of how their story turns out so that they can explore their arc in later releases, such as the Nazarian brothers. Now, as far as if the movie will be getting a sequel or not, it honestly is up in the air right now. While pulling in downright atrocious reviews, they have been able to capture the #1 spot in top movies in the US, a feat that would definitely be used to take into account if they deserve another installment or not, because good content or bad content, if they're getting the eyes on them, then who really cares? As far as the ambiance for this film, you have a heavy LA influence that they are going for. From the Cali music they surely emphasize in their scenes, to many visuals that carry that signature California sunset glow. And I feel like for the most part, it wasn't that bad. They even prided themselves on committing to more actual stunts and practical effects, which I gotta say turned out pretty good. It only starts to be questionable really when you get to the graphics and the CGI, which for some shots can be a bit ridiculous at times, but it's not overwhelmingly bad to the point that it makes the film unbearable to watch. Now, if you haven't pieced together the similarities already, Day Shift is clearly Netflix's attempt at making a Blade franchise before the MCU can get theirs off. From having a vampire hunter who was characterized by him being able to work during the day and having their personality be run by their stoicism and coldness while doing their job. I even thought that Bud from Day Shift had some sort of powers, the way that he was picking up and throwing around the elder vampire in that opening fight scene. This ultimately creating one of the more unusual side effects in that this release could tamper with the actual MCU Blade release coming out in 2023. Because while one has the potential to be drastically better than the other, the comparisons will possibly be there due to them hitting a lot of the same story elements, meaning that their releases will have a harder time being appreciated for what they are instead of being harped on for what they are not. Day Shift has me ending up with more questions than I should for a movie with a pretty simple plot as this. And the thing is, I don't know which part is questionable due to them trying to wait to explain some things in the future, or them genuinely just not making a complete film. It's a simple action comedy that I'm able to just take for what it is, but it feels like I'm missing critical information for it to actually be seen as complete. It's not even like they leave certain things up to interpretation, as they don't really allude to anything important enough to interpret from. Day Shift is a culmination of trying to use money and flair to cover up any sort of blemishes, leaving us a movie that straight up just feels incomplete. Wouldn't mind a sequel though. If you guys made it this far, I would ask if you guys please like and subscribe to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds, but it would mean the world to me. Peace.